right. Well, we're still going back and forth, the social worker and I don't know. She's wanting to transition my pension over to purely medical things, receipt, paying for drugs and dental care, basically. The thing is, I don't have a family physician. I'm not on any prescriptions. I'm not even allowed to go to the hospital because they claim that I tried to murder everybody in the building by going in there without a mask when my kidneys shut down that time. And they refused to treat me. I'm basically cut off from Canada's universal healthcare system at this point because I won't comply with their mandates. So I actually have nothing like that. Um, yeah. So I'm waiting to hear back from her anyway. I asked her what exactly it means. See, the thing is, I think what they're going to try to do is to take my pension away from me ultimately. And I mean, right now, our government in Canada, both the provincial governments and the federal government, are really murderous. Like they are actually murdering Canadian citizens. They're a globalist government, so they're automatically anti-human. And of course, if you do a little research into globalism, you'll see the globalists subscribe to a thing called Fabian socialism. And basically, with Fabian socialism, what it is if they don't feel you're contributing enough, if they don't feel you're giving back enough to society, and that's whatever they determine giving back is. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It matters what they decide is enough. Then they get rid of you. They either kill you outright or they make it impossible for you to survive so that you'll die. Now, the government of Canada claims to be benevolent in that it is offering us the opportunity to avail ourselves of assisted suicide. That's how bad things are here right now in Canada. That's how evil things have gotten. And it isn't just here, I know that. It's a worldwide thing. I mean, it's globalism. So it's all over the world, not just here. By definition, globalism means everywhere, all over the world. Now, the United States has just gone through 4 years of globalism. And now Donald Trump has come in and he's establishing more of a protectionist economy and more tight controls over who comes into the United States and so on. All of which I think is a really good idea. I support him in that. And I know a lot of people hate Donald Trump because he does mean tweets and makes fun of people and everything. And I don't really like some of that stuff myself. He does have an abrasive personality. But I would sooner have somebody in there with an abrasive personality, but who gets things done for the people, than somebody in there who's just purposely trying to sabotage everything and trying to tear the country down. You know, when they talk about Build Back Better, and Joe Biden himself has used that phrase, Build Back Better, because he's a globalist. Well, I'll put it this way. When I was a kid, my dad's brother Bill, I have a lot of Uncle Bills. My mom had a brother Bill. My dad had a brother Bill. And then I also had a great uncle whose name was Bill. And actually, I had another great uncle, too, whose name was Bill, but he died of cancer a couple of years before I was born. He died of cancer like in 1966 or something. So I wasn't around when he passed away. He was a fairly young man. He was only in his 40s when he passed from cancer. And that was my grandma's brother. Anyway, I never knew him. But I do have a great Uncle Bill who I knew, who's passed now too from cancer in 1978. And I have my uncle, my mother's brother Bill, who passed from cancer when he was 55 years old, and I knew him. And of course, I still have one Uncle Bill left. That's my brother, my father's brother, and he's on his last legs. He's blind, and he's just in an awful mess anyway. It's sad to see him in that state, you know. I feel badly for him. But that's he's just completely blind now and everything. It's too bad. It's really sad. I saw him at my Uncle Dave's funeral, and it made me really sad to see what's become of him, you know. So he's probably not going to last too much longer. But anyway, that Uncle Bill, the one I just spoke of, the one who's now blind, when I was a little boy, back in the early 1970s, he bought a property just down the street from my grandparents' house, you know, from the house he grew up in, just from his parents' house, basically. He and my dad and my other uncles and aunts grew up there. And my other uncle and my aunts grew up there. Anyway, he bought this property just down the street. I remember when all this happened. This was back around 1973, 74. And there was a house on the property, an abandoned house. There used to be a lot of abandoned houses in Perth. You don't see it. You don't see that anymore. But back in the day, when a house got abandoned, it was just left to rot. You know, that's what would happen. And anyway, there was an abandoned house on the property. It wasn't in good shape. It was beyond saving. And so my Uncle Bill didn't want to keep it anyway. He just bought the lot for the land, really. Anyway, they tore that down, and he built a new house there. And that's the house that he and my Aunt Irene still live in. Anyway, the point I'm making here is that in order to build his new house, he had to tear what was already there down. And I remember the old house that was there. And I remember seeing the house coming down when I was a little boy, and then seeing the new house come up. All the men up in the rafters with hammers, you know, bang, 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 you know, in the summer sun. I remember seeing that. My dad helped with that construction project. He was one of those men up on the rafters with the hammers banging in the nails. Anyway, the thing is, because that's how they did it back then. They didn't have pneumatic tools with, you know, air guns and things like that. They didn't have that back then. They banged all the nails in with hammers, you know, bang, bang, bang. And I still remember the sound of all those hammers, because there was like half a dozen men up there in the rafters banging away with hammers. But anyway, the thing of it is, though, you know, that place that was there had to be torn down, because my Uncle Bill couldn't build his new house on top of the place that was there, you know. He had to tear the place down and build his house. Well, when they talk about build back better, they got to tear down what's already built in order to build what they want to build. Now, they say build back better, but for who? They don't tell you that. They just say build back better and let you think it's better for you. It isn't. These people hate humanity. They've already said they want 95% of us gone by the year 2030. That isn't going to happen unless they cull the population. And so what's happening is they're making it harder and harder for people to survive. And those of us who are already on the low end of the totem pole, we're feeling it the most. You know, when I criticize Canada for being that way, for basically trying to kill us, which is what our government is doing, I'm told, if you don't like it, then leave. I've had so many people tell me that. You don't like it, leave. Well, how could any reasonable person expect me to like living under a system that wants me dead? Would you like that? Who would like that? Imagine living under a system that wants you dead. It'd make you kind of resentful, you know? And what these people don't realize who say this is that the government wants them dead too. It's just they're coming for me first. They're going to kill me, and then they're going to get around to killing them. But they want 95% of the people gone. And they've openly said that they want 95% of the people gone. And then all their policies are designed to make life more difficult, to make it harder not to freeze to death in the winter, to make it harder to work, to make it harder to run a business, to make it harder to keep a roof over your head, to make it harder to get from point A to point B so you can conduct your business, and so on. Everything is about making it harder for you and I to exist. And also making it harder for us to propagate. Making it harder for us to reproduce. Because if you're in a situation where you can't afford the basics of life, then you're probably not getting into a relationship, and having babies and all that. You're probably not going to be doing that because you can't support yourself. You can't afford to put food in your own mouth. How are you going to afford to put food in the mouth of a child? You can't afford to keep a roof over your own head. How are you going to keep a roof over your child's head when you don't have a roof? And so on. So that's another thing too. They're doing it in a variety of ways. They're making it so that we will die sooner, and they're making it so that we don't produce any replacements for us prior to dying. This is what they're doing. These are not nice people. Now, I'm not speaking about my social worker specifically to say that she's a rotten person. I'm talking about the system in general. She's just a cog in a wheel. That's all she is, just a cog in a wheel. And that wheel turns. If you ever seen the way a geared wheel works, you got your wheel and you got your little gears coming out all around it. Let's say you're this gear right here. The wheel turns, you move with it. That's what happens. The wheel turns, you move with it. The wheel does another turn, you move with it. Every time the wheel moves, you move with it, if you're a cog on the wheel. Well, that's what these people are. They're just cogs on a wheel. They're just along for the ride. And most of them, I'm sure, either don't believe that it's as bad as it really is, or if they do believe it, they just say, well, what can I do about it? I don't like it, but what can I do about it? And they just continue on, because what else are they going to do? And if they refuse to continue on, that will move up the date of their destruction. Instead of being killed in 10 or 15 years, they'll be killed in 2 or 5 years. But apparently the goal is to get rid of 95% of us within 5 years now, because 2030 is only 5 years away. They're not going to do that by handing out condoms in Africa. That's just not going to be enough. There's going to have to be a mass call of the population. And that's what they're doing now. This is just the early stages of it. And they're removing first all the people they consider useless eaters. And see, that's what Fabian socialism is. We'll make sure that you have just enough to survive as long as you're producing more than the value of that. As long as you're contributing whatever we think you should be contributing. As soon as you're not able to contribute that anymore, or you're not contributing that anymore, we'll get rid of you. And see, Fabian socialism is not only anti-human, it's anti-God. Because there's no way you can believe in the God of heaven and be okay with that sort of a thing. Another thing they're doing up here now is if you're on a disability pension, when you turn 60, they tried to force you to take early retirement. So they tried to force you to go over to the Retirement Canada Pension Retirement Plan. If you do that, you're going to end up with about $400 a month to live on. That's what happens if you do that. Unless you had a really good job, like a good government job that paid a lot of money or something, in which case then you have a really good pension. I know one guy that took early retirement. He wasn't on ODSP though. He worked for the government and he ended up with a really good pension out of it. But for the rest of us, you get about $400 a month. My friend who lets me camp here, he sold his business this year because the government made it so hard to run that business, and it made it unprofitable. It got that he just couldn't afford to run the business anymore. It was costing him more to run the business than the business could bring in. And so he sold the business. And I'm not going to say how much he got for the business because that's his business. But because he's now 60 years old, he's having trouble finding work. And he put in for early retirement. And he gets like $400. That's what he gets. So this is another thing, you know, I'm going to be 57 this year. So I've got about 3 more years before they try forcing me to do that. And I don't plan to do it. I have no intention of doing it. I'll fight them on it. So now I not only have to get my truck fixed up and pay off all my debts that I have lots of, and the debts got racked up because the pension doesn't pay enough. But on top of that, I also have to be able to buy a piece of land somewhere so that I'm not still living this way when I'm in my 70s, if I last that long. And on top of that now, I'm probably going to lose the little bit of a pension I get when I'm 60 because I'm going to refuse to cooperate with them and apply for that old age pension early. I'm going to refuse to cut my own throat by doing that. And I'm going to end up in court over it is what's going to happen, probably. I'm going to end up fighting them in court. And then who knows what that's going to cost. And, you know, like I say, it's going to be a waking nightmare when I turn 60. That's what I've got to look forward to. Make no mistake, governments all over the world are trying to kill their citizens. They're murderous. You know, and people compare Trump to Hitler. Trump is actually working for his people. You know, all of them, regardless of what race they are, regardless of their ability or their disability. You know, I mean, you could be a 3-foot tall black guy with one leg, you know, and blind and deaf. And Trump isn't going to try to kill you. Here in Canada, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that the government's going to try to kill you. And yet Trump is called a racist and he's called Hitler and all the rest of it. Well, you know what Hitler did? Hitler killed people who were dealing with those sorts of situations. If what I just described was you and you lived in Nazi Germany, the government would kill you. Well, guess what our government's doing? Yet we have the nerve to call Donald Trump Hitler. It's true what they say, you know, they accuse you of doing what they in fact are doing. So, anyway, bottom line is, humanity is not a thing anymore. If it ever was a thing, it's not anymore. I think there was some humanity at one time, but I think those days are over. I really do. I don't think we got any humanity anymore. Not that there aren't individuals who are humane. I know there are. I see them here on this channel, and I see them other places too. But society in general is not very humane, and the government is definitely not very humane. And even when they appear to be humane, they're not really being humane. They're trying to lead you into a trap in most cases if they appear to be humane. And, offering people a lethal injection because life has been made difficult for them to the point where they can no longer survive, that is not a humane thing. If I go on a campaign to destroy you, and I have the power behind me to do it, and I do it, like I take everything you have away from you. I take your home. I take your children. I take your ability to operate a vehicle. I take your ability to earn a living away from you. I take your health away from you. And then I come to you and I put my arm around you and I say, hey, buddy, I can see you're really suffering here. I feel bad for you. If you'd just let me take this knife and cut your throat, it could all be over just in a few seconds. And that really would be for the best, don't you think? Well, would you call me humane, or would you call me a psychopath? I know what I'd call me if I was doing something like that, and it's not humane. And that's the bottom line. That's the government we have anyway. That's how they use us. And then I get people mad at me because I call Canada a shithole. I don't know what else to call it. It's a police state. Our government is actively trying to kill us. I recognize it because it's happening to me in a direct way. Some people aren't quite there yet because it isn't happening to them in a direct way yet. They're feeling it a little bit. They're going to the store and to the gas station and whatnot, and they're feeling it. They're having a little harder of a time surviving, but it's not to the point where they recognize what's actually going on yet. They will. They will recognize it because once people like me are gone, then they'll become the main target, and then the heat will be turned up drastically on them. Anyway, on that cheerful note, good morning. I have to call the lady that I work for in town sometimes in a few minutes and see what she's up to. When I go there, I generally go on Tuesdays. I'm able to help her with some things around her house and to get her garbage out and stuff like that, Because, when you get older and you have health issues, these things get to be a chore. Really, they get to be kind of tough. And it's been a tough winter. I know it's been a really tough winter on that lady. And she's got a bunch of stuff going on in her life too, where it's getting harder for her to survive. And again, it's being done. It's not by accident. This stuff is being done on purpose. And again, I'm not going to get into details of what's going on with her because that's her business. It's not for me to put it out here. But the bottom line is she's just one of many people I know who are having these sorts of issues. And it's not right. The inhumanity is strong. You can see it. And it's not right. That's all. And I'm going to fight tooth and nail against all of it because I feel like it's an obligation. I have to. And I'll suffer even more for it. I know that. I already have. But the way I look at it is I'm on death row right now. Like, the reason that security on death row is so high, if you've ever seen what they do on death row, the kind of security they have there, you think maximum security prison is secure? Well, take that and then put it on steroids, and that's what you get with death row. Like, if you're living in the United States and you're in a state that has the death penalty, if you're able to see what death row actually is like and how it works, how death row is ran and stuff, it takes maximum security prison to a whole new level. And there's a good reason for that. And the reason is those guys have nothing to lose. They know what awaits them. And they have nothing to lose. They're not getting out. And so that's why security is the way it is. When they come to get a guy to take him on that last walk, they don't fool around. You know. Now, most of the time they don't resist because they've accepted it. And why subject yourself to any more indignity than you're already being subjected to? Why make it any harder than it already is, you know? Why get your ass kicked on the way to the electric chair, you know? Doesn't really make a lot of sense. And they realize that, so they don't put up a resistance. And this isn't me commenting as to whether or not they deserve what's being done to them or not. I'm just stating the facts of the situation. If you're in that position, when they come to get you to take you for that last walk, what they call the last mile, even though it's generally only a few feet from the holding cell to the death chamber, they come in force. Like the goon squad comes in there, and they surround you, and they let you know if you cause them any trouble, they're going to kick your ass. And they will too, you know. And they do that because they recognize they're dealing with somebody who has virtually nothing left to lose. And those are the most dangerous people. And I mean, in my case, the things that I have left to lose are dwindling steadily. And so, for me, I'm the guy that should be fighting this stuff. I'm the guy who should be putting up resistance. Because how much more can they take from me? You know? They can take a little bit more from me, to be sure, but not that much. Anyway, bottom line is, I'm going to keep fighting. I'm not just going to give in. And I'm not going to obey stupid mandates that are put in place to oppress people. And I'm not going to go along with the program and all the rest. I'm not going to accept digital ID, which will bring about programmable digital currency. I'm not going to accept any of it. I'm probably going to be debanked at some point. And so, it is what it is, I guess, you know. Anyway, Rocky's over there tapping on his water bowl. That's his diplomatic way of saying, get me some new water, slave. Hey, do you need new water? He said, this water is disgusting. Oh, it is disgusting, too. You're right. I agree with you. Let me get you some new stuff, Rocky. Okay? Hey, look at him. He's beautiful. Yes, he is. He puts up with a lot around here, too, you know. As I said before, it's very difficult to get good help these days. And so, poor Rocky has to deal with all my incompetence. He does. Look, I put the bowl down and there's no water in it. And of course, hold on a minute now. Let me find that one there. Well, we'll open up this one, I guess. Oh, okay, you. Okay, just wait. Watch, Rocky. Wait. See, there he is. Here, let me put this up here so that you might be able to observe what's going on, maybe, perhaps, maybe. I don't know what we're doing here. All right, I'm going to pour the water out here. Let me pour the water out. He's got his face right in it. I'm having trouble pouring the water in the thing here because he's got his face right in it. There you go, my friend. Enjoy. I can't actually see what I'm doing half the time. All right. There he is having his water. We'll talk to you all later.